Hello and welcome to another episode of Mets in the UK, bringing you all things Mets from a UK perspective. We'll be looking back at last week, having a look forward to next week, and having a little chat about news that we've had throughout the week. This evening, I am joined by Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how are you doing, Toria?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good to be back doing
We've
another pod
missed
with
you.
yourself. I know. Had some time away, but it's good to be back doing the pod.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you back. Speaking of back, we will get on shortly to our boys being back home, but we are just headed back from a road trip with, let's say, mixed fortunes. That's fair.
Yeah.
Since we last recorded last Tuesday, we had games 2 and 3 up in Toronto against the Blue Jays. We lost game 2, 6-2. Peterson was a little bit off his game. He wasn't quite the Peterson that we know. That's allowed. It's fair enough. He only went 4 1/3, gave up 5 runs, including 4 runs in the third. We had nothing going whatsoever. A little bit disappointing. But then we flipped the script in game 3 and got the 6-2 win to wrap up the series. We had that epic 6-run ninth, which I'm sure we'll get onto shortly, kicked off with the Lindor home run. Manaea was incredible, 6 2/3, only 1 earned run. A lovely way to wrap up our visit to Toronto. Then we had a day off on Thursday. No complaints here. And headed to Philadelphia. And we got off to a blinding start. Blinding 11-3 win in game 1. And everyone was buzzing. Our group chat was insane.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. Quintana went 7. He's now at 9-9 for the year. So despite a few shaky starts, he has proven himself really solid this second half of the year. We had the 3-run homers, including 2 of them in the 6th. Fifth. It was in the 5th, I think. We had the Alvey one driving in Iglesias and my tie. And then Nimmo sent Lindor and Vientos home. And then my boy Bader had a Beta day. My boy Bader had a 3-run homer in the 8th. 3-2 down, 2 outs. He got in those other 3 runs. And then we had the solo home run from Pete to wrap up our scoring in the 9th. Unfortunately, that was also the game where Lindor overran second base, tweaked his back. We'll come back to that shortly. And then Philly got a 3-run homer of their own off Young in the 9th, Brandon Marsh. Game 2 versus the Phillies was a bit of a come down after the night before. We had that 4-6 loss. We had a great start. We were up by 4 in the third. Sevy went a solid 6. But then Philly just chipped away from that 4th inning onwards, and we got absolutely nothing against their bullpen. We didn't have Lindor for that game. Acuna made his debut, though, got 2 hits. And Bryce Harper got 2 home runs, 3 RBI to give them that 6-4 win. It was one of those where they just kept going and going throughout the whole game. And then game 3, we got excited about the return of Lindor, but he only lasted the 1 inning. It was a very tight and very frustrating 2-1 loss. Yep. Acuna came back in for Lindor in the 2nd. There wasn't really any action at all until the 8th. But Peterson went a solid 7 2/3, bounced back from his start, his previous start in Toronto, just 1 earned run and 6 strikeouts. But Philly then got that walk-off in the 9th versus Diaz. So series loss against the Phillies, series win against Toronto. Probably not unexpected.
No, I don't think it is. I think the kind of results that we've seen in the last few games, they're the kind of results where they happen in May, June time. You shrug them off and you go, that's baseball. It's kind of the rub of it. It happens. I think it's because we've hit this business end of the season now where everyone is desperate for wins. They want to see the Mets claim that wildcard spot, go to the postseason. I think just the pressure is upped a little bit more on the team to produce. I think as long as they can keep winning these series, I know they lost the Phillies one, but as long as they can keep winning these series and staying positive overall, I think they're in every chance of doing so. Obviously, the Lindor injury, not ideal. I know we'll come on to that a bit more in a minute. But there's nothing that I've seen that's made me think, oh, that's it, season's over, throw in the towel. You know, it's been very much what we've seen from the Mets, where the vibes are still there. Everyone is contributing. It's not. Lindor's been our MVP, and you know that's a debate we could have forever and a day. He's carried the team. He has been the definition of an MVP. They're going to miss him, obviously. That goes without saying. The guy has carried the team. But the fact that everyone is chipping in, the number of players you reeled off there that got home runs or drove in runs, I am not worried because this team can step up and produce in the right situations. You know, pitching has really upped its game. Like you said, Quintana had, I'm sure he'd admit it himself, he did not have a good start to the season. Has really turned things around. We know Manaea has gone away and worked on some stuff, changed the way he pitches, and is now, you know, looking like an incredible asset to the rotation. David Peterson, my God, you know, the surgery that he had, clearly it's fixed whatever was wrong with him in the first place. He looks like a completely different pitcher from the one that we've been used to seeing over the last 2 or 3 years. Sevi, again, there's another one where, you know, he's just been incredible for us. And I know a lot of the players that they brought in, it was designed to be this, you know, low risk, high reward kind of signings. And they're all in contract years. So they're all playing well. You know, we could still see Manaea. He could still opt out and end up somewhere else. And that'll come up in a future show. You know, now's not the time to talk about it. But, you know, I just think we've got the right players in the right situation at the right time, if you know what I mean. I
do.
They're playing for contracts. They're playing to win. They're playing for a postseason. I don't see them with the games that are remaining, especially who they're playing in the games remaining. I just don't see them throwing in the towel and giving this up. I know you're a big to the last out girl. And I think that's going to be the case. You know, we are going to lose odd games. We are going to come across, you know, your Brandon Marshes who step it up every time they play the Mets. Brandon Marsh is the most mid player ever.
It's like he takes it personally against us.
He's so average in every other game against every other team. But the second the Mets are playing them, suddenly he just turns into this unbelievable talent and pulls out. He's not the only one. I mean, there's countless other ones we've seen over the years, but just another one of those examples of being a real pest when it comes to playing the Mets. And we're going to see more situations like that where we have a lot of the games have been close, other than the 11-3 that you talked about. They have been close games, even though the scoreline doesn't necessarily suggest it. They are close games. And, you know, even if you strip the Mets fandom back a little bit, from a neutral perspective, we are watching good baseball games. Correct. They are enjoyable to watch. Obviously, yes, we would all love the Mets to win every game from here until the end of the season. It would be fantastic. But we need to be realistic enough to know that you just can't do that. No. 162 game season is a long time. They're probably really knackered. They've worked really hard since May to turn it around, and arguably the Mets have been since May the best team in baseball.
Not even arguably, factually, since the end of May.
I mean, if you want to argue it, it's top three, but
and factually, they are.
Yeah, factually.
Best record.
They are probably knackered. They've worked really hard to get to where they are, and for what we were told at the start of the season was a down year, a retooling, like whatever you want to call it, whatever phrase you want to use, they lowered the expectations. I said at the start of the season, I was expecting this to be an 86 win team. That's looking likely that I'm going to be wrong on that and that they're going to go past that amount.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be wrong on that. That's great. But I think if you compare it to last season, we've made a step forward and the season's not even over.
Yeah,
we've got a positive vibe around the baseball team. The players are happy, they're smiling, they're joking. We've got players that we can root for and get behind that are clearly bothered about playing in New York rather than playing for Uncle Steve's paycheck. And it's been a very likable year. So going back to what you're saying about the previous games, I'm watching with enjoyment even when we lose. I don't want to see them lose, but I can accept it's part of the game, and I'm still enjoying the baseball even though we are losing. And I think that's a real credit to, everyone at the Mets, both on and off the field, because I think Mendoza and Stearns and all the backroom staff deserve credit for being part of that, 100%. Because they've been part of that shifting culture that we're seeing.
It has been fun from start to finish. Obviously, we had that kind of that slightly down period, but even then you could see like they were trying to keep that vibe there. It's just been it's been that vibe. You cannot give up. I know I always say to the last out, but that comes from somewhere, right? That comes from years of watching it, and it's part of the makeup of why I love this team. It's not a new thing. The mentality of to the last out has been from when I started watching this team. The fact that they've always, and if ever we lose that's when I'll start worrying. For the past, however, 13, 14, 15 years, however long it is that I've been watching, from day one of the things that grabbed me most about the Mets is that they were gritty and they always played for each other. And that has been true throughout the whole time. So I don't just say to the last out because I'm an optimist. I say it because I've been there and I've seen it and I've watched it, and it's part of the DNA of the Mets organization. When we lose that, that's when I'll start kind of getting a bit miserable about life. But right now it's still alive and kicking, and I will always stand by it because you can never write them off. We have 27 outs every game. We have 162 games every year. So until the last out, the last game, you just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very much within reach. It's all still to play for, and whatever other sporting cliches you want to throw at it. But, there's still a lot of baseball to be played between now and the end of the season. There's still a lot that could happen, a lot that could go right, a lot that could go wrong. And I think the closer we get to that, the more exciting it's going to be. And, I certainly can't wait.
Correct. And as we record this, so we're actually recording on Monday night this week, shock horror, but that's with very good reason, because we have left our usual set Tuesday night slot for a very special guest recording tomorrow. So you get us on Monday night. So we've not yet started our series. We often have started a series before we record, so this is a little odd. But we are currently tied for that third wild card spot with Atlanta. So despite losing the series against the Phillies, we've not really lost ground. Dodgers didn't help us out quite as much as I might have liked, and certainly not as much as we hoped. But they did us a solid last night when we needed it most. So we'll take that. Philly are extending their lead at the top of the division. But again, still a lot of games to go there. They're now 9 ahead. Padres have been picking up some wins as well. So they are 3.5 games ahead. I don't care whether we get in wild card in the second spot or the third. I don't care. As long as we're there, it really doesn't matter. I know, obviously, there's arguments over home field advantage and who you face and all the rest of it. Couldn't care less. If we make it, I fancy us against anyone at any time anyway, no matter where we are. But let's just focus on getting in. We touched on the Lindor injury earlier. So he had his MRI today. That's come back clean, which is good. So he's currently talking about anywhere between 2 and 5 days out. He said he could return during the National Series, but I think even he thinks that might be a bit of a stretch. I'm not averse to him just sitting this series out, just resting him, unless we absolutely need him and bring him off the bench, like if we're in a real hole. But let him sit it out, let that back recover, bring him back against the Phillies. Marte is still day-to-day after that whack on the arm, so we'll see how he gets on. Jet Williams is back in AAA. So there's been quite a bit of movement. Of course, we mentioned about Acuna coming up. He's looked good since he came, and the boy is quick, which is helpful too. The other things going on this week in the news. Firstly, the Mets announced that it's going to be Fan Appreciation Weekend this coming weekend, the last home weekend of the season. I might be there, so I might be a little bit excited. Just a tad. I'm trying to. Not sorry. I'm not in the least bit sorry.
Yeah,
so I will be there enjoying Fan Appreciation Weekend, but also a little odd one today. They unveiled a Grimace seat. Yes, there is a Grimace seat in Block 302, and it's row 6, seat 12, because of him throwing the first pitch on the 12th of June. Now, of course, for us in the UK, we would have row 12, seat 6, because 12th of June, obviously.
Yep.
It's not June 12th, but whatever. What's a few rows between friends? So there is the purple Grimace seat, and I believe Grimace is going to be in the ballpark tonight. So perhaps he can get us off to another winning homestand streak. What are you thinking about Grimace back? Do we need him?
Why not? It's been that kind of year where I'm just like, it started off with a whole host of random people in the crowd. We've had the dog with the glasses. We've had "Oh my God" signs in the dugout. We've had Grimace. From London as well. Like, it's been the most crazy. Like, you could never have put any of this stuff on a bingo card, like, ever. So, do you know what? Why not? Why not at this point? Just, what else could you possibly do? You know, like you say, it's fun. People still love it. People still get behind it. I think as long as that's the case, and they're not trying to flog a dead horse, like, go for it. Like, why not?
Why not? Yeah, loving it. So, yeah, if you are in and around City Field this weekend, Fan Appreciation Weekend, it's going to be a lot of fun. I do know that a couple of people from the UK are heading over as well. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of a UK contingent there representing. I do
Are you
have.
taking the flag? That's the question.
I am taking the flag.
So
I will have the big flag. I don't quite know how I'm going to handle the big flag on my little lonesome, but it will be fun. For anyone who has not seen the big flag, I don't have it yet, but you might be able to see.
It took at least 2 of us to hold it up at the London series. Two minimum, like 3 or 4 usually.
Yeah. So it's bigger than it's bigger than me, I think. In fact, that'll be interesting. I'll have to like hold it that way and see if it actually covers me. It might do. I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Of course we will.
But the big flag will be around. I'll also have the travel flag as well. And crumpets for Madge. I'm going to take crumpets for Madge. So, and hopefully I'll get to see my Howie as well. Howie is still down from when Button was over the other day, because so he's not on his shelf next to Keith at the moment, because as soon as Button walks in, Howie has to come out to play.
The most loved bobblehead.
It is the most loved bobblehead. It's also now the most broken bobblehead because
Poor Howie.
Poor Howie. But it's, you know, it's from a place of love.
Of course, yeah.
Button just adores him. But yeah, so hopefully when I take Madge's crumpets over the weekend, I'll get to see Howie as well. And yeah, so I'll have the big flag. I will also have just a few Mets in the UK stickers with me. So if anyone sees me and they want a Mets in the UK sticker, if you are fast enough, you may have one. As we're thinking about next week,
yeah,
we are now about to start our homestand. So we have 3 games against the Nationals and then just a small matter of 4 against the Phillies. So they Nationals are the exact reverse of our record at the moment. So we're 81 and 68, they're 68 and 81. Which is, I don't know why I thought that was relevant, but it just amused me. So we have Manaea starting tonight, and he will be followed by McGill and Quintana to see out the Nats series. And then I expect Sevy and Peterson will open the Phillies series to keep the rotation going. Obviously, we're missing Lindor and Marte tonight, and they seemingly hit well against Irvin. So that is a bit of a bummer. But we shouldn't be scared of the Nationals. They've had a few decent wins recently, in fairness.
Yeah.
But again, it's like what we said when we went to Chicago. It's the kind of games that we might slip up on. And the pitching matchup tomorrow is going to be pretty tight as well, I think. So we should take the series. We should be at home. I think it's the last homestand. I think tonight people will be buzzing to have the boys back. It seems like the road trip went on forever. So I think everyone will be pleased to have the boys back. They know how important this homestand is going to be. So I think it will be rocking there for the next few days. Well, the next week. And then, of course, we've got those huge 4 games against the Phillies. The biggest thing as far as UK contingent goes with regards to the Phillies series is the broadcasting. I am actually so glad that I am there because this would wind me up no end. Thursday night is on Fox. Friday night is on Apple. Saturday we get SNY. Woohoo! Sunday, messing with my Sundays. I am so glad I'm not here to get wound up about them messing with my Sundays because it's Sunday night now for ESPN. So if you are watching the Phillies series in the UK, just be aware that we do not get our lovely Sunday fun day. We get Sunday night. But let's not complain about national broadcasts. There are 2 things. 1, you can listen to Howie and Keith. Marvelous. Don't complain about the other announcers. Just put the radio on because that's the best way to listen to baseball anyway, in my opinion. And 2, it's only because they're important games. That's why they're all being picked up. It's great that we have meaningful baseball in September and that the networks want to show our games. Let's not complain, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know we've talked about this before. I actually quite enjoy listening to some of the other broadcasts. It's nice to... I love GKR like as much as the next Mets fan, but it's nice to sometimes hear what other commentary teams think about the Mets and hear it from a non sort of biased opinion. The only exception to that rule is if the Mets are playing the Yankees. I do not want to listen to Michael Kay. I'd rather watch it with the sound off than listen to him. But other than that, you know, any of the other broadcasting teams are usually okay.
I quite struggle with the Cubs guys. Is it boo? Yeah, I struggle with him a little bit. I could be insulting Chicago royalty, but whenever they've had a few early games on recently, I struggle a bit with him. I see your point though about, you know, getting that different perspective sometimes is really good. But how are you feeling about the games?
I don't think we're going to sweep the Nationals. Like you said, they've had a good run of games lately. I think if we're realistic, we can take the series. That'll be a 2-1, I think, of 3 games there. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a split with the Phillies, if it was a 2-2. If you offered me 4-3 on the homestand now, I would take it. It's still a positive. It's a step in the right direction towards that wild card spot. Obviously, I'd love it if we beat the Phillies, and I sound like Kevin Keegan now. I'd love it if we beat them. But if we beat them and win the series, great. Who wouldn't love that as a Mets fan? I think we've just got to be realistic of where they're at as well. They are pushing for the division title. They have it's meaningful baseball for them as well. It's not like they've already won it and this is filler games for them. So I think if we're realistic, 4-3 would be nice. I would be more concerned if we went 3-4 or 2-5. I think at this point, if you're going that way, especially at home, the last homestand, I would be worried. But, they're going to be close, like I said earlier. I don't think we're going to run away with any of these games. I think they're all going to be close. Nationals pitching is good. Phillies, like you said, any one of them can turn up on their day. As much as they hate to admit it, they are a good team. They've got some good players, and their pitching isn't bad either. So I think
they're not where they are by fluke, is the point.
No, not at all. No. So offer it me now, I'd take 4-3. I think that's achievable with where we're at, who's out injured, who's not at full fitness, and where the rotation is. Like you said, with the options we've got, I think 4-3. I'd snap your hand off now. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Selfishly, I'd like us to take 3 out of the Phillies, preferably Friday to Sunday when I'm there, mostly because it'll then give me a winning record for watching the Mets. So at the moment, I've got a losing record, so I need those 3
What is your
wins.
record? Remind us.
8-10.
8-10.
Mine's
5-2.
Yeah.
Someone find me over to New York.
You should be coming with me.
Yeah.
So I would selfishly, I would like it, but obviously I do not want them to have any chance of wrapping up the division against us. More importantly.
Oh no.
I do not
as well. That's just
I cannot allow that to happen. But I will be back next week in time for us to record our pod next week, and we will see how we've gotten on. Fingers crossed. That's all we can do, and just keep enjoying it. Don't forget, last week we caught up with Jerome of JMac Customs. That was an excellent pod. If you've not yet listened to it, go give it a look. He was a great guest and a lot of fun. We mentioned our slot tomorrow is reserved for a very special guest. Not going to give it away just yet. You can wait for that to drop later this week. But we're looking forward to recording that tomorrow evening. And Tom and I will be back next Tuesday. I might be half asleep.
The jet-lagged edition of the Mets in the UK podcast. I think I'm going to have to host next Tuesday to try and
absolutely
prop you up. And
yes,
you'll have about 15 coffees before we go and record.
Yeah,
it'll be worth it.
But it'll be totally
worth it. Yeah.
Worth it. Anything else to add before we wrap up, Tom?
Just let's go Mets, as always.
As always, go find us on all of the socials at Mets in the UK. Give us a like, give us a shout, give us a share, give us a follow, all of that good stuff. And until next week, we say, let's go Mets. Good night from Mets in the UK.